Yo, 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 welcome to Crate 808, and today we have a very special guest in the house, a living rap legend who blew up but didn't go pop, a man who took us 3 feet high in a Buhloone Mindstate, a gravedigger who loves a Carl Weathers platinum party, the guy who went double wood in the hood. It's the Undertaker, Chess Rockwell, plug 4. Yes, we've got Prince Paul in the house. How are you doing, bro?
Whoa, that intro is intense. Can I record that and use that and then open in my DJ set?
Oh,
that covered everything.
You know what? It didn't. There were so many edits of that, but like man, I had to keep it short and sweet, man. But yes, mate, use whatever you want. Paul, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I know this has been a long time coming. We've been trying to plan this, so I'm glad that we got it rolling today.
Yeah, man, me too. And the only right way to kick off is what we ask every guest. Man, what's the least hip-hop thing you've done in the last 24 hours?
Was put on that headset that I tried to do this interview with that looks like R. Kelly's I Got That Vibe video. That was not hip-hop, and it was not cool. And you mentioned R. Kelly in this landscape is not cool, so that's totally not hip-hop.
Yes, I like it, man. I like it. You found that headset you were saying to me earlier. You found it because, you around the house, cleaning up, the pandemic is kicking in, man. Lockdown.
Oh, man, I have so much stuff I've acquired, so many years. A lot of collectible things, actually, a lot of cool things, but some things that's kind of hard to get rid of and you don't know, what to do with it. So I just had to really just, get down and come to reality. And it's like, I will never, I'll never use these smoke bombs, like random stupid things like, oh, man, what's this? Like the R. Kelly headset. Like, I tried to use it. The bell-bottom jeans gotta go.
Tell me then. There must be something there that you're like, you know what? You're about to, you're gonna throw it out, but then you don't. Is there anything like that where you're like, no, I need to keep that. I need to keep all of this.
You know what is like broken equipment? Like I'm looking at a keyboard right now. It's like a USB keyboard, and it looks beautiful. It just doesn't work. And, I would say to the fans out there, if you'll pay for shipping, I will send you a lot of, usable electronics that I have around here, man.
Do you know what? I can see this being a thing on eBay. Prince Paul's just knockoff gear, just anything that doesn't work. But I'm ready to sell it, guys.
Oh, man. I have so much collectible stuff like memorabilia, shirts, and like from the 80s and 90s, when everybody had I got like the afros and random stuff.
Yeah, man.
Prince, rock the house t-shirts. I'm like, I gotta get rid of. I got pro-keds, like brand new ones from the 80s that never worn. So
do you know what, man? You should just put these on the gram. Just put them on. I'll be here for it. I'll be here just to see daily one post a day of shit you're throwing out. I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. But how? Before we get into the nitty gritty, man, how are you dealing with it? How are you dealing with the lockdown, being stuck indoors kind of thing? How you feeling mentally? How's it going?
Well, I think just the fear of potentially catching something is making all of us a little unraveled, But as far as like the social distancing and all, I do that anyway. Like this has not really changed my lifestyle. The only thing it's changed is me traveling. Like I would at least go out and do a couple of gigs a month or travel and record. But for the most part, I'm a homebody. With the exception maybe going to the gym. But the fortunate thing, I built a gym in the house so I can work out in the house. But yeah, I'm at home. I don't, I'm not, I don't like people like that, No, and I mean in a good way. I'm not into TikToking or anything.
No. Are you checking the ridiculous amount of live streams that are kicking off right now? Have you been checking any?
Oh man, I see them and I don't know. I social distance on social media too. So
no. Okay.
Bad. I'm bad. I'm telling you, I'm really bad. Somebody told me recently, I'm a analog man living in a digital world, and I was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's a beautiful thing to that though. There's a beauty in that. I find like we easily forget those moments, especially as a 90s podcast. We go back and we're like, oh yeah, I remember when that CD scratched over that track on that bit, and like forever you're like that track stays like that for you. But man, let's go into it, man. I mean, it's your first appearance on the podcast. We would just love to hear everything. The career is huge. Ooh. I just really want to start with, man, like when you were a kid and you were a child, how did you like grow into the culture and kind of just get into rap?
Wow. See, like I think I started DJing in 77. I was 10 years old, so that give you an idea how old I am. I'll be 53 next week. So it's even before it was even called, that I remember, called hip hop or even rap. It was just something that was, a DJ in the park and somebody just going to the beat, y'all. Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, and it was really simple. And maybe you might have an echo chamber to the beat, y'all, y'all, y'all. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Check it out. It was like that, and the big giant speakers and all the power and the battle of the DJs, and and it was disco, usually like disco breaks and stuff. So that was off the disco. That was the end of the disco era.
Yeah, for sure.
So that to me is my introduction, and then later on, as the rhyming part got more popular, and then scratching got really into it, because it was, when I first started, there was just cutting. It's like Kent, 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 and then later on, I think probably like 78 or something, I started hearing chicka chicka chicka. I was like, what's that? Like, so I've seen everything kind of come along, and I grew up with it. And I collected records as a child. My first records I bought, I was 5 years old, and it was Groove Me by King Floyd and Hot Pants, Brown. And I collected like kids records, which kind of reflects in my music that I've done. And so that was my thing. I just collected records, and having older siblings, that were teenagers while I was like, 5 years old, I wanted to be like them. So I listened to what they listened to. So I was always ahead of the music. So from collecting records and having a record player as a child, and not really being into toys, but into music, it was a natural progression when I first seen the DJ in the parks. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. And part of that is, Long Island, because, I'm born in Queens, raised in Amityville, but my grandmother lived in Brooklyn. So I had a little taste of, from anywhere between Long Island to Brooklyn, which included Queens. So I got to see a lot of the DJs there. I wasn't in the Bronx, so I didn't get to see that, but I knew the sound of the Bronx, because obviously that's where Grandmaster Flash and all the great DJs. But being in Long Island, we had our own set of DJs. We had this guy named Yago Dog and Dollar Bill. And then if DJ Pleasure, if you went to Queens, it was Grandmaster Flowers, Maboya, the Plumber.
This history, man, it's so rich. Just to a 90s head, hearing these names, it's like, wow, I want to know more just from the names, man. Do you know what I mean? Them names are superior, bro. I love that.
Yeah, the Disco Twins and, Pete DJ Jones. So I was up in that era, though I was a child and I got laughed at and teased because I tried to say I was a DJ. And of course, it's funny, in my head as a child then, I didn't think it was funny. But now looking back, if I was a little kid and going, yeah, I'm a DJ, I'd be like, okay. It's cute on the internet when you see little kids scratch, but we're talking about there was no sensitivity in the 70s and 80s.
That's it. You now put a video up of a kid scratching, everyone's liking that shit. Back then, oh nah, man, I can tell. But you can hear it from the rhymes. When I grew up and I heard like Rakim and Nas talking about grabbing the microphone at sets, and just you have to kill it. You have to kill it in jet. Otherwise, do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
people ain't gonna stand for it. But like, if we're talking about that, then we're talking about like this, you growing up in that transition from being a spectator and being on the sidelines and taking it in to actively taking part in it. Do you remember that moment? And do you remember the first time like you got validation for being good at it as well?
Oh, I could. Yeah, the moment that I started DJing, or kind of like I'm the DJ, was my friends next door, Charles and Mitchell Robinson. They lived next door. They moved in from Brooklyn. We were really cool. And just randomly, because they knew I had a lot of records, and I was making pause tapes, which was like taking a cassette and hitting the pause button and cutting in breaks and stuff. And you like, because you didn't have a mixer, so you just paused everything. Like if you were DJing. So they were like, "Yo, you should be our DJ," because they rhymed. I was like, "Okay." So it was the power of suggestion. And that was the first crew. And back then, we had, our crew was called, and we got joked around about, our crew was called the Ever Ready Crew, like the battery. And I had a shirt that said DJ Ever Ready on it. And I remember that. I still have it.
That's pretty sick, man. You still got that? That's sick.
Oh man, it looks like a baby shirt, and it has a decal of a Yamaha motorcycle on the front. That's how childlike it was,
Damn, man, damn, that's amazing. I mean, how old were you then? What age are we talking here?
probably when we got the crew together, it was probably like 11, maybe going on 12. I was experimenting with DJing in the house. That's why they said you should be the DJ aside from the with a makeshift set I had aside from the pause tapes when I was the end of going at 10 going on to 11.
That's crazy, man, because when you look at your just body of work you've done, which is enormous, everyone that I've talked to, especially in the UK, everything that we say is the variation in your music is huge. So when you were a kid and you're like 11, this stuff is evident in your work now. But when you were a kid, what were those records that you first truly fell in love with that maybe were a little bit out of the box? Do you know what I mean? Like that weren't strictly hip hop.
Oh man, everything to me was Parliament Funkadelic. I was immersed in that heavy. You like I would dream about it. I remember this is how intense of a Parliament Funkadelic fan I was. I went to the library one time and they had an article in the newspaper and I didn't have the 10 cents it took to photocopy the article. So I wrote down every word and it was 2 pages of a newspaper so I could take it home and read it over and over again. That's how much of a fan. I listened to I would skip school. I almost failed the 6th grade listening to I think the Motor Booty Affair or something. you know what I'm saying? Like really, like I was that all in, you know.
Damn. Going from that, being that young and just being like fervently into it, and then you go on and make a career out of it. You're so young at this point. Like, what are your family saying? What are your parents saying like to this whole thing? Are they like just go for it, or are they more like a bit reserved?
Well, you know, like my family, like in general, are all music lovers. I can't say there were any musicians. You know, my dad passed away when I was 9, but he was a very big jazz fan. So I would sit in the living room with him every once in a while and hear Coltrane, Thelonious Monk, you know, and stuff that I can honestly say as a child I did not appreciate because hearing you're like, oh, and he's all into it. And I'm like, it's all right. But having said siblings who are teenagers, you know, anything that was hot, that was disco, that was going on at the time, I knew. And I listened to the radio inside out. And people have to understand, like, radio growing up in the 70s and 80s was a lot more diverse. So if you listen to a station, you'll have, like, a Hall and Oates, you have Disco Duck, but then you'll have Donna Summer, and then you'll have Teddy Pendergrass later on. Well, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, I should say, and, you know, James Brown, and then it got real disco, you know, with who was super disco back? Well, Donna Summer was super disco, you know. So it was all over the place. So you listen to a little bit of everything, and it kind of got you open in your ear, a little more diverse. Where now it's like, you know, R&B, hip hop all day, or hip hop all day. We're all rock, you know. It diversity. So our stations kind of played a little bit of everything.
Yeah. That's where the variety comes from as well. I mean, don't want to jump forward too far, but like we talk about hip hop, like growing up and you just getting into it at such a young age. What did you find in that culture and music that you couldn't possibly find in other things?
Oh man, see, the feeling is so hard to describe because everything was so new. One thing, it was new. It was loudspeakers. It was giant speakers on top of each other. It was a system booming. It was people dancing. It was records you've never heard on the radio. And then, man, people are running like beats back and forth, you know, like just the break sections. And I'm like, yo, what's this? And the mixes were huge back then. And, you know what I'm saying? It was just, you know, but the thing is, you couldn't find it anywhere. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like you can turn on the radio. People have the internet now. You know, there's tapes of it. There's articles written about it. There's podcasts. There was nothing. All you could rely on is occasionally if you find a flyer or you hear boom, 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 and you take your bike and you follow that sound. And if somebody's like backyard or someplace you couldn't get into, you know somebody who lives there? Yo, can we get in? Yo, can you let's back there? Or if it's a park, you're just like, oh my God. And you just see all the people run towards the music. It was almost like Batman and the bat signal. He puts it up in the sky and he, oh, okay. You know?
Yeah.
So it was just so hard to get to. So when you got it, you just appreciate it. And if you were able to get a tape of it, you know, and that's where the tape of, you know, all the stuff in the Bronx became so popular with Grandmaster Flash and later on the Cold Crush and Kool Herc and all these guys. Like, he was just like, oh my, Bambaataa. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's very hard to get to. So that's what, to me, what made it really special. Like, you couldn't find it anywhere, like anywhere.
Yeah, I wonder what that is for people nowadays. Like, because I work with a lot of like younger people, like 21 to 26, and they have some weird like tastes, and I'm like, I don't even know what I do as a kid now. Like, there's so much different stuff. Like, I'm kind of glad that I found one subculture and there was so much diversity in it. And yeah, nowadays it's just like, wow, I don't know where I'd start, man. I just don't know where I'd start.
Hey, yo, this your boy Foul March, and right now, you are rocking live with the Crate 808 podcast. Enjoy this week's episode, and just remember to subscribe and rate and review. Peace.
But man, when we go on to like your creativity and we talk about you as a producer, when I say producer to the listeners out there, like some people may just see that as an all-in thing, but I think there's a difference between like a beat maker and beat making to someone who actually produced artists. And I completely put you in the latter category. I think most people would. Do you remember when you were kind of creatively like growing, what made you err away from the path of just being like a beat maker and actually thinking, you know what, I want to kind of produce?
I think a lot of it was just natural progression from being a DJ, because you got to remember, like, as soon as the drum machine came out or became popular, like through Grandmaster Flash, and people don't give Flash the credit because, you know, when he did Flash It to the Beat, which was like late 70s, early 80s, and he had a beatbox. Like, yo, he has a beatbox. I'm like, what is that? Like, you hear the drums and, you know, the beat, and it's all electronic, like you have no idea what it is. You know. So everybody, every DJ had to figure out what that was and how to get one. So once you did that, you automatically start programming. And then programming, you know, as soon as like hip hop records started to come out, it was a natural progression. Okay, I make beats for my MCs in my group, you know, when we rhyme live, you know, okay, let's format it in song form. Okay, there's the intro, the verse, the hook, the this, the that, and you start to learn the format of songs as, you know, times go, you know, as time went on. And it was just like I said, just like a natural progression, you know, where, you know, it's not just you have an idea now. It's like, yo, man, we need to make a song about, you know, they did my Adidas, let's do my Reeboks, you know what I'm saying? So now you have visual things in your head, and, you know, like, yeah, let's do some footsteps in there. They're talking, you know. And so that's where the production comes in, because now you're starting to guideline it, and then you have an imagination and your little bit of knowledge of how music is sequenced and structured, you know. You're a DJ, so automatically in your head, you think you know what's going to get people dancing or get a certain mood out of them because you DJ'd and you experimented on the dance floor and you knew what records did what and what beats did what. So it's all encompassing, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. So when we're talking about like you making these and producing these things, break it down, man. Like, what kind of creative are you in that studio? I don't know. Are you patient? Do you agonize over things, or are you more freewheeling?
Man, I'm all of the above. It depends on the project, who I'm working with. You know, if it's my own project, if it's with somebody else. If it's working with somebody else and other lives are involved, then I'm a little more like, you know, let's get this done. Let's get it done right. If it's like a Prince Paul project, though, you know, I'm heavily into it, I'm a little more loose with how I work, how I do the music, you know, and the creative part and how wild I can get, because it's not like I have to go to somebody else and they go, yo, what's that? And be questioned. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's, you know, I'm the alpha and omega. So I can kind of like, you know, haha, that's funny. I like it. And then, you know, kind of done. But yeah, I mean, some MCs that, especially in the past, if you would have said, yeah, man, I was working with Prince Paul, it's like, yo, he made me do it over and over and over and over. You know, I would do a billion takes. As I got older, I started doing less. But yeah, I would, you know, things would have to be right. Yeah, so it's all over the place. It's case by case, really.
No, but that's good. The versatility, man. That's a versatile way to be, because, again, being a producer, I'm guessing you have to deal with a lot of personalities. And I mean, talking of personalities, before we get into Della and your own projects, talk about Long Island, man. Growing up as a kid, I didn't see there were different factions of New York because we're in England, and in the UK, kind of bunched them all together. As you got older and found the nuances in rap, and you found these different areas and the amount of talent in a small place like Long Island, man. Tell me, man, what was it like when you saw the people like Rakim and Zev X? And I mean, what was that like seeing those guys for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, you know, people automatically, especially back in the days when you said you were from Long Island, like, it's a sucker. You know what I'm saying? Because what was really happening was definitely the Bronx was popping. Then you got Brooklyn and Queens. Staten Island, like I said, where RZA's from, they didn't really nothing from Staten Island, and so Long Island being the suburbs, you thinking grass, trees, there's really no hip hop in that, you know what I'm saying? It's on just high neighbor, so yeah, but what they failed to realize, and a lot of people who lived out, who didn't live in Long Island, is that people in Long Island are all from the 5 boroughs. Like a lot of the black people moved into Long Island was so they can have a better life. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, we live out here in this apartment in the Bronx. Man, I got offered a better job or I got a raise. Let's move out. We have more space. The kids will have a better school. You know what I'm saying? So, so the Long Island was essentially the 5 boroughs. You know what I'm saying? Piled into one. So, you had obviously the influence of, the 5 boroughs, but Long Island, especially when you kind of look down on, you had to excel. You was like, okay, you think you're dope, I have to be 5 times doper. It's like women in the workplace, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to compete with this guy and automatically he's going to get the credit, but you really got to work 10 times harder. It's like, say, even being black in the workplace, you know what I'm saying? Like you have to show and that's how it was with the music.
So do you remember the first time you heard Rakim?
Yeah, the first time I heard him, he was in a group called the Love Brothers, and that was back when I was in high school. And I was in high school in like 1980. It was probably 1984, 83 maybe. And I think he was called Love Brother, Love Kid X, or Love something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had a different name, and he was down with a group called the Love Brothers. And then I remember kind of a competing group that was the next neighborhood over was Supreme Force, which was Freddie Fox's group, which now everybody knows Bumpy Knuckles. And then in Wyandanch, because Rakim lived in Wyandanch, and which was clear enemies of Amityville, where I'm from. They were kind of rivaling neighborhoods. They had, I think, Chili Dog was there from Groovy Chill and Blau, and they were from over in that area. And then Biz was kind of just roaming around. Like he was further out east in Long Island. Put it like this, let me give you an idea of when we go east. When you're western Long Island, that's closer to the city. That's closer to Queens and Brooklyn and then going into Manhattan. So it gets a little more urban, and that's where Public Enemy knows the guys from. When you go out east, and the further out east you go, which is near the Hamptons, it gets more farm and rural, especially back in those days. So Biz was from like a very rural part of Long Island.
Oh, snap. Okay.
But he was the hippest guy in Long Island at the same time because he traveled so much. So he was from, I think, like Patchogue or somewhere out there in Long Island. Yeah, and he would come to Amityville a lot. He'd be in Wyandanch. He was everywhere.
Damn.
Like as a kid. So
yeah, man, no, just an icon, absolute icon. It's just so mad to think he came from a rural kind of area because from here we're like, that's New York. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it was like I said, still Long Island, but like I said, the further you go out, it gets a little like there's less things going on, let's say.
Yeah, fair. I feel you.
I mean, it's changed nowadays, because everything, how things are, they start doing construction and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at people generally that you've worked with in New York. We have to talk about RZA, man, because the stuff I failed to realize was how kind of close your relationship was. I mean, even when I'm watching that new Wu-Tang drama, it's like, oh, Prince Paul's just naturally there whilst he's doing his We Love You Rakim video and stuff. And I'm like, what was that early stages of essentially the Wu sound when you were working with RZA? Like, what did you find in that person that you couldn't find with other people?
Well, just to make it clear is that what's in that show, which I haven't seen, but people told me about it. I was not there at the video, and I was not wearing a mask.
Oh no! Don't destroy my dreams. Oh no!
It wasn't like that. But
okay.
I met him right after I did 3 Feet High and Rising. So this was like 89, maybe early 90, 89. And he had a manager. This manager name was Mel Kwan. He's like, hey, I got this guy. You might like him. His name's Prince Rakim. I was like, yeah, I'll meet him. And then I met him, and I was like, there's something different about him. Like he's dope in his own way. You know what I'm saying? Like his rhymes were clever. He had like a somewhat of a lisp or something going on. I was like, yo, okay. And the thing about, I think what made us work well together is he listened, and he wanted to learn, and he was very respectful. And that made it even more like me wanting to teach him more. So as time went on, when he went, we started making demos together, which has not been released. Like I got like 4 demos, no, 3 or 4 that we did together during that time under Prince Rakeem. And then at some point, he got a deal with Tommy Boy. And that's when he did they went to the studio to do Ooh We Love You Rakeem. And I remember when it was at Calliope, and that's where I used to do all my stuff with Stetsasonic and De La Soul was in that same studio. So, I walk in and I remember this clearly. RZA has the loop going. Well, he was Rakeem back then. He had the loop going for Ooh We Love You Rakeem, and they were trying to figure out how to put a drum beat to it. And there was an SB12, and I was teaching him how to work the SB12. I was like, yo, all right, this is what you do, and I was like, I'm just going to put like a guide beat, just, in the meantime. I was like, once, you could change it later because I'm sure you want to just change it, but this is an example. So I was showing him how to work it. And it turns out the same drum pattern was the one I programmed and left in the drum machine that day. I was like, it was just a demo. It wasn't like a real beat. It was like boom, boom, smack, boom, boom, smack. So that's how we built our relationship. And getting to the Wu-Tang, there was after that, I didn't see him for a long time. And that's when he went to jail, and I never talked about it because I never knew how comfortable he was talking about it until I seen the documentary. And then he talks about it a lot. Then I'm like, oh, I could have told people. So that's when I hit him up and it's like, yo, man, I'm putting this group together and I think he'd be really good in it. Cause I knew his situation with, Tommy Boy didn't work out, and he's like, yo, I just got out of jail. And I'm like, and he's like, yo, I'm taking everything very serious. I'm down, whatever you're doing, da 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 da. And I introduced him to the other guys in Gravediggaz, and that's when he brought up Wu-Tang. As we were making the demos for the Gravediggaz and getting it done, he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about putting this thing together with a lot of, guys in my neighborhood. I got my cousins, and I got, so everybody got these different flavors, and I'm just gonna put it together, see what happens. I'm like, yeah, cool. Let's get to this Gravedigger thing. And while we were recording the Gravedigger demo, because my thing was going the normal route. Let's just, make a demo, we'll shop it, get a deal. His thing was like, yo, I'm going to put this out on my own. So he recorded Protect Your Neck, After the Laughter, and he put that out on his own, and he just hustled. He had an MPV, he used to come by my house. It's funny, like, now the guy's all famous, but he used to come by the house with Old Dirty and Genius and, random guys from Wu-Tang. They used to sit down in my basement where I had the system and
Jeez.
And they're like, yeah, man. I'm like, yeah, we got to work on this Wu-Tang. I mean, this Gravedigger thing, man. Later on, guys obviously blow up the huge, but, who knew,
Yeah, who knew exactly, man. I mean, what were they like? ODB, I mean, they look raucous, they look like they travel heavy. Were they just like taking it on board what you were teaching them or what they were learning with you?
Well, I mean, when me and RZA was recording, a lot of times, because I had a little loungy area, they would just sit down and talk and we'd order food and they would eat. They were just like, yo, we were trying to get this thing popping, because I remember clearly ODB and Genius when they were at the house, they're like, yo, man, we're going to put this group together. I think it was them too. And it makes sense because they were cousins. And it's like, yo, you got some beats, you got whatever. And I remember saying, yo, I got to get this Gravedigger thing done first, man. And all I remember was ODB style was just like, yo, what style is that? I've never heard rhyming like that, like ever. Yeah. It was just his own thing. And we were all nice and cool. And, they're nice guys. You know what I'm saying? People look at me, yeah, Wu-Tang, from Slums of Shaolin. Yeah, I see that part and I know that part exists. But I met them under different circumstances. Was just like, hey man, how you doing? Laughing and
Yeah, man. And the thing there when you're telling that story is the commitment you were showing to something like Gravediggaz. Because growing up, I came to Gravediggaz quite late. I was like well into Wu. Then you go back, obviously, and right. I remember at that time, okay, everyone called it horrorcore and whatever. Growing up and listening back to that music, I think it kind of does it a disservice just putting it under that one banner because there's a lot of different stuff going on in that record. And then hearing it was pre-Wu, I'm just like, wow, man, that from 90, 91, 90 to 94 was so huge a leap in hip hop. So much different stuff happened from a fan's point of view. I'm just wondering if that record had come out a little bit earlier, what impact it would have had before 36. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that was it, man. It was a sound and a vibe and a style was for it to come out at that time. We sat on that record for a couple years because I went to shop it and nobody liked it. Everybody turned it down. Everybody. Man, we got the door slammed in our face every which way.
Like, what were they saying? Like, it's just not going to sell, or what was their excuse?
Now, mind you, now we're talking about the RZA not being the RZA. You know what I'm saying? Like, a matter of fact, he made the name the RZA in my house when we was doing the Gravediggaz. Like, I'm gonna be the Resurrector. So there's a lot of history, surrounding him. Kind of, for me being around and kind of seeing and seeing develop. But get back to the story is that I went to shop it and they were just like, oh, these guys are old, they're played out. Somebody told me, somebody from Jive was like, who's that, Prince Paul? And those guys are old. Now, mind you, I was 25 at the time.
God damn, you were 25.
I was 25, and because I was with Stetson Sonic, and that was like, I joined Stetson Sonic when I was in high school. It seemed like I was in the music industry forever. So they were like, oh, he's old. And those guys are washed up and played out, and they didn't want to sign us. And I remember Russell Simmons, was like, no, he didn't like it. But then he came out with his nephew. What was the name of the group? Oh, man, I can't it's going to come to me later. But yeah, it was a similar style to what we were doing.
Oh, okay.
Nobody wanted to touch it. But I did get a call at one point and I met with Eazy E. He wanted to sign the Gravediggaz, the Ruthless. So I went out to California to meet with him because I met him before. We hung out lightly once or twice when we was on tour. When I was on tour with Stetson Sonic, so I knew him. So I went there to California, met him and Jerry Heller. It's like, yo, I really like this Gravedigger tape. I want to sign you guys. So I'm chatting with him for a little while, and he's like, okay, yeah, talk to Jerry. He'll give you a contract. And that contract was horrible. Oh. It was horrible enough for me to say, I'd rather not have a contract and put this record out than put it out.
Oh, shit,
and no disrespect to Eazy, because I think it was more of Jerry Heller making the deals and doing everything than him saying, yeah, I want to give these guys a bad contract. So I didn't take it personally towards him, because I like Eazy. He was a good guy, man. Like, he got along really, really well. And we waited almost like a year and a half for that to get a deal. And then finally, last minute, John Baker from G Street, literally, it was, I remember telling Poetic, God rest his soul, I was like, yo, man, look, I'm gonna get this one more week, and after 1 week, it was a year. It's gonna be a year. And I was like, then I just have to give up, man. And he's like, yeah, okay, I understand. He was working at a bread factory or something like that. And Wu-Tang was just starting Protection Neck was just starting to buzz up in New York. And so literally that week, almost to the day, I get a call saying, yeah, John Baker wants to meet you and he's interested in signing your group. I'm like, what?
Whoa.
So, it's that spooky. And we signed, and that's how that thing rolled along.
That's crazy, man. Because again, and you know what, fair play, when that's blowing up at the same time, there's going to be people who want to jump on a sound. You see it timeless times. But fair play, I really enjoyed the fact that you can look back, and RZA kind of gave it his all from a listener's point of view, from a fan's point of view, listening back. It's just nice to hear that element, and there's a documented version of it, because you have these dreams as a 90s head. You're like, God, I wonder if Prince Paul had combined with this guy, or if you'd have done an album with Zev Love X or something, and you think, oh my God, we have one. We have RZA, Paul, and the rest of you guys. Yeah, wow, man. I find it's still one of them records that we should all be looking back to now and then. You can pick a lot of that stuff up, man, and you can hear it. You can still hear that stuff. Same with Wu, same with everyone at that time. It still resonates, man.
Oh, thank you. You're right. If it would have came out in the time that we made it, I think it would have been a big record. But the fact that things changed and the whole Bad Boy sound was coming out, and then Wu-Tang kind of, and Mobb Deep and things were just getting kind of like either super grimy and less conceptual, then that kind of changed the landscape of where the record came out in,
For sure, man. Zev Love X, MF Doom, what was that like? Because I know you started back in the day. Was it Gasface? Was that the first time you linked up?
Yeah, Gasface is actually Doom's first record he's ever recorded. As far as history goes, I met him through Pete Nice. Through Pete Nice, because Pete Nice brought him to the studio. Was like, yo, I got my boy. He called him Doom, just Doom. Yeah. Doom, Zev Love and da-da-da. And I remember Doom brought his brother Sub Rock with him, rest in peace. And and it was just like, yeah, I'm getting rhyme on it. I was like, cool, nice to meet you. And same thing with Doom. Is like, we're all kids, but they're a little younger than me. And they were just willing to listen, willing to learn, follow direction. And even to this day, when I do talk to him, I haven't talked to him I talked maybe a year, but we get on the phone a lot and chit chat, and we still have the same rapport, same, Paul, what do you think? Do you like this beat? I'm gonna send you some stuff. And, and that's how it was when we were younger. You know what I'm saying? He's like, I'm thinking about putting my group together. I'm thinking about da-da-da. What do you think? Follow, advice. But man, now I need his advice. He's like, he just got so huge. He reinvented himself.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the beautiful thing, that you can still have that common ground. How's he doing? Like, is he good? Like, I know you said like a year ago, but was he cool?
Yeah, the last time I spoke to him, he was cool. He was out over your way.
Ah, okay, over in London. I know he's got some roots over here, so
yeah,
I claim him, mate. I claim him over here. I'm like, he's the best UK MC.
He was there the last time I spoke to him, and yeah, he was doing good. He was recording, and it's like, yeah, I got this new thing I'm doing. Oh, Paul, you got to hear it. And I've been hitting him up, and he's very sporadic, like out of nowhere, it's like a email will come from him with something like, yo, where you been? He's more elusive than me.
Damn, that's saying something. Something, man.
Yo, what up, y'all? This is DJ Premier, and you're checking out the Crates 808 podcast. I put an S on it because there's more than one record in the crate, you know what I'm saying? So that's how we dig, that's how we play, and that's what real DJs do. You heard? That's why it goes down. We out here.
Let's get on to it, man. De La Soul, where do you start, man, with this group? Let's start at the beginning. I mean, you guys met school, right? Tell me about that energy when you first started recording. Then I've got to talk to you about some albums that I just personally treasure from you guys.
Well, I knew them from school. I knew their faces. Maceo was probably in junior high when I was in high school. So I didn't know him, but I kind of knew him from the neighborhood. I'd see him around. And he was kind of popular with like some of my friends and stuff. They knew him, but he was a kid. We're talking about we're kids. And so, coming out with Stetsasonic kind of made me like somewhat of a local celebrity because I'm the kid who has a record out. So he has a record. You know what I'm saying? So which led me to produce a record for a neighborhood MC named Gangsta B. Now, Gangsta B was signed to a label that our music teacher put out. His name was Mr. Everett Collins. Now, Everett Collins was the drummer for the Isley Brothers. So that's what made him cool. He's like, yo, and he's our music teacher in our school, and he's putting out a label. All right, cool. So now he signed Gangsta B. So me being the guy who made records in the neighborhood, they invited me to come over and lay down a beat, because I had this drum machine. I had this drum machine called Sequential Tom. And the cool thing about Sequential Tom is you could make backwards beats in it. It was the first drum machine I knew that did that. You could press the button, it could play forward, and it'll play in reverse. Oh. So they wanted me to do this reverse beat there, and that's when Maceo was there. Maceo was his DJ, or Mace. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, oh, this sounds too much like Paul Revere. And they're like, no, this is great. And I was like, nah, I can't do this. Oh, come on, man, you got to do it. And me and Mace were looking there, and that's when, back then hip-hop, biting was a crime. It's not like that nowadays, but back then it was like, anything that's biting is just like, it just put a pain in your stomach. And so he's sitting there watching me in pain, and he's like, yo, I got this group that I think you might be interested in. It's my group called De La Soul. If you want to use some of those ideas on us, you want to work with us, man, we'll definitely be down. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna bring you a tape. So he brought a tape by the house, and it was a rough of Plug Tuning. And when I heard it, I was like, yo, who are these guys? He was trying to explain them to me, and I was like, this is just different. I was like, oh, this is so ill. I was like, yo, come back tomorrow and bring the guys. I want to meet them, and I'm going to add some stuff to this song. And so I went and added some, overdubbed cassettes back then because I didn't have a 4-track or nothing. Some overdubbing cassettes, I'm adding stuff to it. I put it on a VHS tape. I had a VHS machine that you can actually record stereo in. I did my master mix on a VHS tape. So when it came in, I was like, yo, check out what I did to your song. And I put it in the VHS tape, like, oh, it's on the VHS. That was the first impression they had. But my first impression I had of them is like, I'd seen you guys before. You know what I'm saying? It's like Paz, his brother, was kind of like not a thug in the school, but he wasn't to be messed with. You know what I'm saying? And Paz looks just like his older brother. Like exactly like him. But a pleasant, happy version of his older brother. And Dave, I used to see him and his brother, who almost looked like twins back then, walk up, they used to walk to school. And I'm like, these guys rhyme? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like they're nerdier than me, like in my eyes, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm a big nerd. But it was undeniable, just like the skill level and where they were coming from. It was just nothing I've never heard before. And it was like a match made in heaven because I thought off, they rhymed off and their thinking was off. And all the stuff I wanted to do with Stetsasonic, I wasn't able to do, but I was able to do with them. And that was the beautiful thing about De La Soul coming at that time. I think if I was totally happy with Stetsasonic, I wouldn't have looked to work with another group. Because I was the youngest in Stetsasonic, and I loved them and they gave me my start, but creatively at the time, I felt like I wasn't able to have my voice. And it made sense because the group was like 6 people deep. So De La Soul gave me the opportunity to do those things, which now in hindsight wouldn't have worked with Stetsasonic. I couldn't have did Stetsasonic Orgy, like a De La Orgy. I was a kid. I was doing kid stuff, and I could see why Stetsasonic was like, yeah, all right, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Everyone's got to learn, man. We all got to learn, man. We all have to. I think I read the Postanu said some amazing stuff. Like generally, everything that comes out of that man's mouth, kind of you want to listen. He described your influence on the group as the god that came down and sped up the primates.
That's funny.
And I was like, holy shit.
That's flattering.
I can imagine. Reflecting on your time with Della and your work with them, what role do you think you played in that music? Is that a fair reflection?
Man, that's a very, like I said, flattering reflection but it was just, I was teaching them how to get their thoughts and conceptualize stuff onto something that, onto tape. You know what I'm saying? It's like, they have all these ideas and they're amazing. We got all these records, and my job was to put it together and to make them feel comfortable and to make them think I knew what I was doing. Because to be honest with you, though I had experience making records with Stetsasonic, I was still learning. And I went to school for audio engineering, and there's things I still didn't know, but I didn't want them to know that I didn't know. So I was kind of learning on the job. So that's why a lot of that first record is very experimental, and it pushed the boundaries of what we're talking about 3 Feet High and Rising, pushed the boundaries of a lot of things because, there's one way of making records, but, they go, hey, Paul, is there any way that we can take this, make it sound like it's coming out of an airplane? And then I'm like, yeah, we could do it. Now I'm sitting there like, how do I do this? How do I do this? Because I can't let them think I can't do it. So it made me learn a lot of things. I mean, in addition to that, I'm pushing my own stuff. It's like, yo, So I think the more of imagination you have and the more questions you have, it pushes the boundaries in the studio. Back then, especially because it's not like today's equipment where you put stuff in a computer and it's add water. Like, beat, there it is. Back then we had we're making this hip hop music that's not designed for hip hop music. Yeah. We gotta get the most out of all of this equipment to make it do what we wanted to do. And how do we do that from our imagination? And that was my job. And it was teaching them. My thing was to teach them. I was only supposed to do 3 Feet High and Rising in my head. I was like, yo, I'm going to teach you guys how to work everything, and then I'm going to leave. It just so happens they asked me to work on the next 2 records. That's why we have De La Soul's Dead and the Buhloone Mindstate with me on it. Yeah, that was my thing, was to teach them. Like my thing, because I felt like in Stetsasonic, though I learned by watching, but I didn't learn by somebody sitting there explaining to me. And I learned a lot by Stetsasonic by, getting jerked, what I'm saying? In some regards. And that's not Stetsasonic's fault. It's just there's a lot of things they didn't know, but there's some things that they did know. Yeah. Yeah. So it's all encompassing, and I didn't want those guys to go through the same thing. I felt responsible for them, and I seen myself in them. Yeah, maybe that's where it came from.
There's a lot of love and care there in that relationship. I think. Man.
Yeah. I mean, though we don't work together anymore, I'll always love those guys. I was checking on them recently, make sure they were okay, and me and me had a long conversation recently, and. We just grew apart.
Yeah, man, it happens, man. It happens. How are they all doing? At the moment? They're all good?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely doing good. As you might have seen on Instagram. I know Dave was in the hospital recently, but I spoke to him and he sounded good. Or I texted him, I should say, and he responded that he was good. That's
okay, that's good, man. That's good to hear.
Yo, this is Rodney P, the Rhythm Killer, big blood clot things with Enna, you heard me? Yeah, and we're here listening to the Crate 808 podcast. Big things is going on right back to the early morning. If you don't know, get the blood clot. No, you feel me? Yeah, big old man Cam every time. People. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And remember, subscribe it, rate it, review it, and go on and tell your blood clot friends. For real.
I mean, you hear about people getting burnt by industry stuff and stuff like that. And Della, man, I feel like that flag needs to be raised higher than most times because of streaming and stuff like that. People who listen to this podcast who are younger, if only you had them albums to just stream I'm going to have to take you to task for the skits, because them skits were legendary on 3 Feet High, but they also led to, like, every other album in the 90s to, like...
Oh, God. Yeah, it was horrible, you know?
And you're like, it's not an easy thing to do, man. To nail a skit, you know, I just don't want to hear you having a blowjob. I just want to hear a bit more than just that, you know? But, man, we've got to talk about one of my favourite albums of all time, Buhloone Mindstate. First of all, just going to have you on here. Thank you for you guys for making this record. Because when I listen back to it now, I've been with my wife like 15 odd years and we've got a little boy, he's 2 years old. We're in the house, you know, lockdown. She's forced to listen to a lot more of my music than she would have liked to. But
that's good.
But that's kind of good because I feel like, you know, if there's a little lad running around, I ain't going to be like putting on like the hardest stuff all the time. But I was playing Maceo Parker, man, I Be Blowing, followed by I Am I Be. And that track, man, I don't know, something about it even resonates with me as I get older. And my wife was like, oh, what was that? Rewind that. And I was like,
wow, that's nice.
Yeah, and she was like, this is so good. And yeah, and I just want to say, first of all, what are your reflections on that? What I think is a masterpiece, but what are your reflections on that album and making it?
Man, it was, you know, what's weird is out of all the albums that I've done with them, as we made it, it was so much pressure because 359 Rising was so big and, you know, did so many things. And then De La Soul's Dead was kind of like a decline at the time. And you know, now it's like, oh, De La Soul's Dead is great, you know, but back then it was like, and then this was our record to like kind of redeem ourselves. But the group had matured a lot and the sound had changed and people were engaged, but not as engaged. It was just a different time, you know? And so I remember spending a lot of time with Pos just going over how we should put the record together, and Dave had beats and Mace had beats, and you know, how do we go about it? And then, you know, the idea of working with Maceo Parker, which was really cool, and how do we apply this? It was a very heartfelt record because the guy's been through a lot. You know, the first record being naive and being in the music industry, then the second record them being bitter. You know, like, man, you know, I don't trust you and you doing this to me, and you know, it's so. And then this album was kind of just like what happened? You know, all this fame came by them really fast, and now everybody's like, yeah, Tribe Called Quest is dope, but you know.
Oh man, that's crazy, man.
So we got into the sound, and when it was done, everybody's like, yeah, this is cool. But ironically, years later, it's what boosted my career. You know, it's what got Chris Rock to want to work with me. I thought he would like 3 Feet High and Rise, and it's like, no, Buhloone Mindstate is brilliant. All the comedians love that. And when I met Dave Chappelle, I was like, yo, Buhloone Mindstate. Buhloone Mindstate. You know, and it changed a lot of things, and I had no clue that people liked that record that much. But, you know, in De La's, well, I can't say in De La's eyes, in the label's eyes, you know, we were failing because we started out selling so many units and all the accolades, and now we have this record, and they're like, yeah, it's cool. That puts the pressure on the guys, and I think that's what's inevitably made us stop working together because, you know, that album didn't reach where it should have reached, you know, sales wise. But I think I love the record. Like you said, I Am I Be, you know, that I was making that in the house, you know, and I had the beat going when we was you know, and the guys came by, and you know, it's like they was like, yo, what's that? I was like, oh, I made for myself, and I literally made it for myself. I was like, yo, want to rhyme on it? And I'm like, because it was kind of personal, and I had a whole bunch of stuff added to it. But I'd have to say, man, they did a brilliant job. Like I'm not mad at it. You know, I thought I was gonna hate it once the lyrics got on it, but it made it way better. And then having Maceo play over the beat, and it was good. It's a good idea.
Yeah, man. No, absolutely executed brilliantly as well. You're talking there about Chris Rock. And Chris Rock, man, like, we've got to talk about Prince of Thieves as well. That's the first album, just being completely honest, that's the first album that I remember just fully diving into your work. Because Della was like, there was 4 different people in that group. There was a lot of different things going on. Prince of Thieves felt like an actual body of work that was almost like a director. And just hearing Chris Rock, I'll always remember as a kid, just like telling you a crackhead will tune up your car. Was just like, damn, she must have skills, or whoever that is, they must have skills to do that shit. So I remember like just laughing out so much. It was like, you know, on those moments. But before we get into Prince of Thieves, though, like Chris Rock, I mean, when you're working with him, you've obviously done comedy albums with him as well. I mean, what was that like? Like working on comedy albums? It's very, very different, I can imagine.
Oh man, it just like, I mean, I wish I could do a whole comedy albums all the time because it was so easy. You know, I mean, not easy. I take back easy. It was a lot of fun because we're sitting there, we're just laughing all the time. What's the punchline of the joke? And Chris trusts me. You know, the good thing, the working relationship we got, and the reason why he got me to work on the album, so he says, it's like, you get it, Paul. You get the joke. You get it. You know, and so we're, you know, it's easy for him to paint a picture or, hey, I want to do this, and me being able to do it. And so we built up a trust system. And I think after the first record won a Grammy, it was like, oh, wow, that was luck. All right, we make another one. That one won a Grammy. All right, that's never going to happen. Third one won a Grammy. So we built up this working thing of getting the joke, you know. Paul's silly. Chris is obviously a comedian. You put those two together and then you come out with these bizarre comedy records.
Bizarre, but like world forming, man. Like, I did not know any of this. Do you know what I mean? Comedy records to us were not a thing as much, like when you're hearing this, but then I don't know, man. I remember as a kid listening to Doggy Style, and that's a comedy record in its own sense. And you're like, wow, there's so many things, elements. And then obviously, then you hear like your own work. We talk about Prince Among Thieves. One thing listening back to that album as well right now is when I look at that album, it touches on so many things that you think someone in your standing at that time, like you're kind of a pioneer but you've done it all at that point. And yet you make an album which is about finishing demos, just hustling for like just an extra 1,000. That's all I need to make part of this. And then obviously, you know, you've been part of the industry, so you're kind of looking into a hip hop industry from the outside. Tell me about your journey towards making that album.
Oh man. Well, what happened is I had a record called Psychoanalysis that I put out through Word Sound, which eventually Tommy Boy had picked up. And during them, you know, picking up the record, it was Monica Lynch was working there at the time. And she was like, Paul, if you want to do a record here, do anything you want. I'm like, I could do anything? He's like, yeah, you could do anything. And that was based upon, like, Tommy Boy was really cranking out a lot of records at the time. You know, they just got this deal with Warner Brothers and they were putting out all these extra, you know, groups. And I think what happened is, like, you know, the departments were getting bored. So they hired, you know, so they got Paul. So let's get Paul so we could do some creative stuff to get, like, the art department and, you know, the marketing and everybody to get creative and do some happy stuff. Not for the sales. Not because you think you're going to sell. It's to like, give the, you know, let them expand their brain a little bit in the company. So they said I could do any record. I had this idea and I wanted to do this long before. In the early 90s, I had a record label with Russell Simmons on RAL Records, and it was called Doodoo Man, right? I had this label. and I explained that just to say this, is that I came with the concept to Russell. I was like, yo, Russell, I want to do like a kid's record, like on wax, but like a movie. And he was like, demo it. I was like, I can't demo it. You have to trust me. And he was like, nah.
How do you demo this? Like, how would you demo one track maybe to tell a story? Maybe.
Yeah, that would be like a skit. You know what I'm saying? I've stuck with this since the early 90s all the way up into to then, you know, and this was like 96, 97. And so I sit together and I write this whole script out. And I was going through a lot at the time, just a lot of personal stuff. I started working with De La, which was sad. I was going through like a custody thing for my son at the time. It was a whole lot. It was, you know, I wasn't making that, you know, as much as I used to. Everything was like my whole thing was in question. So a lot of that story, though it is silly, and I wrote it and I never wrote a screenplay or anything, and I was kind of learning on the fly. The whole concept of the story was bad people win in the end. And that's how I felt. I was like, man, I'm the good guy. And these are bad people, and they always win.
Yeah, and the bad guy wins. Yeah, it's so true.
You know, so I didn't realize it later until looking back. It was very therapeutic because I was like, man, okay, that's why I wrote it like that, because that's how I was feeling at the time. And so, you know, I get all these people. You know, I try to get as many people as I knew to get on the record. I had a budget so I could pay them. And there was a lot of them were old friends, and a lot of people, you know, they go, okay, wow, you got Everlast, you got Big Daddy Kane, you got all these popular names, but this is everybody not at the peak of their career. So I had to be budget conscious. Yeah, of course I wanted to get Biggie Small. You know what I'm saying? Of course I wanted to get, there's a whole bunch of people, but I couldn't afford them, nor did I have the name, nor the respect at the time for them to work with me. So I got my friends who were just as talented, or, you know what I'm saying, or more talented. Put it together, pieced the whole thing together. I didn't, oh man, I'm not even go through the process of making it. But I gave them all a script. I didn't tell them. I only gave them their parts, and I told them to read their parts. I never told them what the whole story was about. So they never had a clue. And so they read out the parts, and I pieced everything line by line by line by line by line by line by line.
God damn, man.
And with the sound effects, and not using Pro Tools either. This is all with sequencers and samplers. So I'm not looking at waves. I'm listening. Everything's by listening and piecing together. So
when you talk of Biggie though, did you have a character mapped out for him?
Oh, I wanted Biggie to be true. And oh man, I'm not even gonna tell that story. But yeah, I the time when I was gonna ask Biggie, because this was the time when I was in LA. We was recording the second Gravediggaz album. We did a interview at a radio station. I can't remember the radio station. Biggie was there. Him and Lil C's. And I was like, yo, I'm gonna ask him. But I was like, I'll wait because I think tomorrow's the Soul Train Awards. And I was like, I'm gonna go. I'll probably drive over there and try to catch him outside and see if I could ask him then, because everything was a little hectic. Somehow I got caught up. I was hanging out, and then I get a call from my homeboys like, yo, Biggie got shot. So it was so weird because my intention was to go there and try to meet him so I could have this kind of, just like briefly, like, yo, I seen you yesterday at the radio station. It's good meeting you. Hey, I'm doing this record. You think you're interested? So, that kind of freaked me out because I'm thinking like, man, imagine if I was like dumb Paul would have been at the truck going, hey, man, so it worked out,
Yeah.
God bless his soul, because I was right there, and I was gonna ask him. I was like, yeah, the worst he could say is no, you know what I'm saying? And I got caught up. I was, not gonna tell you what I was doing, but I was hanging out, and and it worked out like. But anyway, wait, let me get back to Prince of Monk Thieves real quick.
For sure.
I was putting it, I pieced everything together, did a lot of work, and I remember this clearly. I'm like, yes, it's done. The label wants to sit down and listen to it. I sit down in the boardroom. They everybody, marketing, art department, everybody who's anybody, video department. And I play from beginning to end, and everybody's had a blank look on their face.
Oh no!
And they go like, wow, yeah, that's it's cool, yeah. And you know what? That record sat at Tommy Boy for a solid year. I think I handed it in February of 98 or 97. I think 98. It came out February of 99. So I sat there a whole year thinking like, I hope nobody comes out with the same concept, because they didn't know what to do with it, nor did they really care about it. Remember, I'm a for fun project. I'm not like a real artist. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like, worst comes to worst, we'll write it off. You know what I'm saying? But to their surprise, not to my surprise, because I worked hard on that record, it got all this critical acclaim. And by the time they figured out that this record was special, it's ran its course. Like I was like, yo, man, I want to do this movie, because Master P had this movie called, I'm About It. I was like, yo, we could film this. Tommy Boy Records, films. We could do. It'll be cheap. We could do. They're like, yeah. I couldn't get a T-shirt. I think I got just like a handful of stickers. I couldn't get no promotion. I got a video that was like, I think at the time, which was pretty cheap, maybe like 20 grand, 15 grand. For a video. This was when people doing $1 million videos. You know what I'm saying? So I got which, I was happy, and that's all I got. And then when it was said and done, which made it even worse, they were like, wow, this record, it actually did something. It made all these charts and then all these magazines. They're like, why don't you do another one like it? I'm like, oh, I can't do another one.
Yeah.
Let's where we messed up, let's do it again. And this time we'll do it right.
Oh man.
It's one show only. I can't do that. It was hard. That was difficult. I'm not going.
Not only are you it's obviously piecing it together just that way, you're piecing it together, it seems just wow, like the effort to do that, but also the writing part to me, because
that's what I say, the writing to commit to.
Like, first of all, we talk about Biggie being a character, but every one of these people that you've given a character, like, for me, who decides De La Soul are going to play crackheads? Like, do you write that down beforehand? Does it evolve? Like, what? Just for me, it's quite mind-boggling. How did that one come about? When the De La Soul came on, what was that situation like?
Well, De La was like everybody else, in this process. I as I'm writing it, there are people I'm hearing in my head. I'm like, oh man, this would be cool, and I'm kind of writing it in their voice. So when it's done, I'm going, who's an alternate? So for every part, because I'm expecting a no, you know what I'm saying? who else could play this? Who else could play this? Who else could play this? And De La, and you know, even though we hadn't worked together for a while, and I was like, I don't know how they feel about me, if they want to work with me again. Well, I think we're cool. You know, I'm saying in my head, I think we're cool. But then again, I'm going to pay them. So money always supersedes everything. You know, so this is me talking in my head. So I was like, yo, now mind you, we haven't worked in a while. I'm going, can you play some crackheads? Not a good way to reignite a relationship again. But I got Chris Rock. He was at the height of his career.
Yeah,
and that made it cool. I was like, yeah, you guys, Chris Rock. Oh, okay. So I don't know if, you know, if us being cool was a selling point, if Chris Rock was a selling point, or the money was the selling point. Like, I have no idea. And not saying that they would just cheapen themselves for money, but I don't know.
But it helps.
But it worked out. Yeah, it helps.
Exactly. And it's an amazing piece of work, the whole thing. I mean, we talk about the album, just one track I want you to talk about, Pain. That track, right?
Oh, Pain,
man. It's instantly cinematic, that track. As soon as you hear it, you're like, wow, this feels like a film. It feels, the whole kind of screen widens when you hear that. But for me as a kid, it was the voice, like, spitting on it. So Shah's voice.
Yeah, Shah. He was from the neighborhood, and
man,
it was and part of the reason why I got him because and Breeze Bruin is because one, there were newcomers. You know, Breeze was obviously in Juggernauts. He had some music out before, but I knew that they would work hard, and I knew I would be able to give them the whole script. They could read it out. Their schedules wouldn't be as crazy as if I had got, like, say, a Biggie, you know what I'm saying, or whoever. Right? You know, once I write something, I can't go, hey, can you come back and, yo, Bad Boy only gets paid $100,000. You know, so I didn't have to deal with that. So I was like, all right, cool. You know, I'm gonna get my boys. They're mad talented, and to me, voices were everything. Shah had the right voice to be a villain because it was raspy. It was you could hear it sounded older.
Yeah.
Breeze was a little more, hearing his voice was sounded a little more innocent. So since I didn't have any visuals, I had to make sure that I at least had the voice had to carry a picture in your head, and that was important.
But this is the thing, right? Because it's not just Shah. Like, Shah carries it, but you listen to the voices you're using on that album. Exhibit, Sadat X, Kane, all of them have these iconic voices that carry. So I've got you on. I just wanted to hear, like, your favorite voices in rap. Like, for you, who are the voices that really, really kind of move you?
Wow, you talk about in general in history?
Yeah, in general, just your favorites.
Man, if you're talking about like early as a kid, it would be Melly Mel. Because, you know, Melly Mel just commanded respect. Now you hear it, people are like, oh, okay, that's really throwbacky. But if you were in the day of it, you're like, oh. I always thought Grandmaster Caz, to me, always had an ill voice. And then I always like the younger version of Kane, you know, before his voice got deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Breeze's voice. I like Doom's voice. You know what I'm saying? It depends on, it's unique. It's not like one of those things, you know, like Guru has a very unique voice.
Yeah. The thing is, I feel that the producers hear something differently to us, so they know the kind of music that would work well with it. Do you know what I mean? So just to hear it from your point of view, where you're like, that voice would work, like Grandmaster Caz, people should go out there and check that, because his voice it still resonates. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I mean, especially in those days, you know, he's dope, man. I mean, he's a legend, and luckily I've had the chance to meet a lot of these guys and work with some of them, and once you get a tap on the shoulder from any of the old school guys, at least from me, it was like, oh my God, I've been anointed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel good, man. It's like, these guys were like superheroes to me growing up. You know, it's like, oh my God. Also, when I get to meet like a Kool Herc, and I get to meet like a Bambaataa or whoever, and they're like, oh, you're Prince Paul, and you know me? Oh my God. And I'm like, oh man, I grew up listening to you. Oh my God. You know, you fan out.
Just the way you are there with them, though, is how we are with you and De La, everyone, because it feels like to me, whenever we heard you guys, you were always the outliers, in a sense that I could immediately relate to you more than I can relate to West Coast gangster rap or Platinum shiny suits. It was more like, oh, I can relate to the fact that these guys have problems that are every day, and they're not about today was a good day because I didn't have to use my AK. It's like, wow, I can relate to this other shit.
I love that song, by the way. 'Cause I've had that problem.
Yeah, we all have, man. We all have. We know it's a good day. That can stay in its case. But talking about all these artists and these people that you've worked with, the multitudes that you have, man. I've got to ask you a question that I ask everyone who comes on the pod. Do you have a top 5 MCs? Do you have a top 5?
Man, see, all my top 5 will be old school. You know what I'm saying?
Go in, man. I like to learn as well. So anyone you got where I think,
But you know what? I'm gonna change it up because everybody will go, yeah, Kane, Melly Mel, LL Cool J, Big Daddy, I already said Kane, KRS-One, and Biggie, Tupac. I'm gonna change it up. So if we're talking about a top 5, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna be controversial. I'm gonna say MF Doom. I'm going to say Andre 3000. I'll say Earl Sweatshirt, which I think is totally underrated. Really dope kid.
I love it, though. I love that shout.
I'm gonna say, and people are like, what? Sean Price? I think he's really dope.
P, let's go. Yeah, no, let's go. I'm here for this argument, definitely.
And let's see, if we talk top 5, and I'll say Breeze Bruin because he's my boy, and I just think he's dope. You know what I'm saying? And that's just like my controversial 5.
But you say controversial, but today those guys are in the conversation. Like, you've come such a long way that, what is it, 30 years that we've had these people that are just spitting game all these years, and you think Earl has a shout. Like, I would say he's up there. He's so off the wall. Like,
so smart, man. Like, it's smart lyrics, man. And like I said, I could easily, run down the Rakims and all that, and those are obvious. But to me, this is like I can listen to these guys and get the same, if not more, chills than the first time when I heard those guys in their day. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I was to a Sean Price, like, yo, it's just so dumb. I mean, God rest his soul. Like, some of these rhymes, like, yo, that's just so silly, but so clever.
Yeah.
I love clever rhymes. I love, like, whoa, who would, because a lot of guys, especially, his recycled thoughts, recycled words. But the guys I just mentioned are unique thoughts, unique words, and I'm like, yo, like that. I know in a billion years, I would have never thought of putting these things together. And I like that. It keeps you guessing, keeps you wanting to hear more. Like the next line to the next line. It's not cat, rat, bat, hat. You know what I'm saying? You're like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Going that rhyme too. I know that. Cat, rat, bat, hat. Yeah. But anyway, sorry.
No, absolutely. No, I love that breakdown because that's exactly what I'm saying is someone who keeps you on your toes. We're like, whoa. And you know what I love is when I either I'm proven wrong or I grow into a project. So just for example, there's a guy called Rap Ferrara. I don't know if you know this.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, man. Like, again, there's a few people out there who've been pitching him. Dad Bod, Rap Pod were one of the few people that I saw on Twitter just like saying his album's amazing. First listen, I was like, yeah, it's kind of washed over me, but I feel there's something in there. Second, third listen, I was like, wow, I can't understand why this works so well. So I do feel your top 5, and you know what? Resonates, mate. I feel that. I feel those 5. So yes.
Wait, so who's that person again? Rap what?
Rap Ferrara. So it's R.A.P. F-E-R-E-I-R-A, I think. So yeah.
Okay, I'll find it.
Yeah, man, definitely check him out. Because, well, actually, I was listening to one of his tracks today whilst I was washing up, and I was like, damn, Prince Paul would probably really enjoy this track. I don't even know you, but I was like, I can just hear the music. There's a lineage from what you made back in the 90s to him dropping something this year. I was like, wow, that's a beautiful thing, man, in rap, that you can hear these elements and they kind of make something new every time.
Oh, I got to hear.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Hey, yo, Mayhem Loren, live in the building, Crates 808 podcast. Enjoy this week's episode. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You heard? Subscribe, rate, and review. I'm out here flexing like a slinky. You know what time it is. Lorendes, Queens to London and back. You heard?
Talking to a few of our staples, though, I've got to run through a few of these with you before you go, man. To you, which 90s artist has aged the best? You can take that as whichever way you want. It could be looks, it could be music, it could be anything.
It's like I said, I hate stating the obvious, but it had to be like Jay-Z. Like, he transcends, like, even though his last records, to me, I wasn't like a big fan of him, but he sounded pretty good on Jay Electronica's new record.
Damn right. Unbelievable. Where's this Jay-Z been hiding?
you know what I'm saying? The one before, I was like, yeah, it's cool. It's all right.
What, 444?
Yeah. I was like, it's all right. But he's like just, man, since, Hawaiian Sophie with jazz. And I worked with him. I worked with him back in the days, like when he's with jazz. So I've known him since the
God damn, that was his diggity phase, right? That must be
yeah. Back in those days. So and he's just transcended time to like I said, he's just on Jelly Electronica's record. Like, man, he's got the life and the wife, like, gee.
He does very much have both those things. But then we're going on. If there's a 90s track, you've made so many classics, but if there's one that you wish you could have made, which one and why?
Is it a track or a whole project?
Let's go for track.
Man, which record made the most amount of money in the 90s? Is it Can't Touch This or is it Ice Ice Baby? Like, which one was the biggest record? I wish I made that for obvious reasons.
That's fine. That's the best answer to that question. We can just put that question to bed now because Prince Paul's just absolutely killed it. So, yeah, fair. I can't say anything more to that. But you obviously DJing and that's like your first love and stuff like that. I'm always like interested to think if you were, I don't know, DJing a house party, we're on lockdown, so say it's a house party and everyone's social distancing very well. If you could drop a 90s record that would get that party live, what track would you play, do you reckon?
Man, to get that party live. Oh man, I have to look at the crowd because, I'm looking at them and I'm like, all right. Yo, I anything off the Chronic, man. You know what I'm saying? If I played G Thing, like any of those songs, people are like, I mean, that's universal, East Coast, West Coast, down south. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like some records can get a little, it's too commercials, too this. You put that song, ain't nothing but a G Thing. I was like, that's kind of foolproof. Not the answer everybody's looking for, but hey, you talk about me as a DJ.
No, but I feel you. That's you talk about those studio sessions of the Chronic, and you're like, they sound amazing. Is there any studio session you thought, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall just to see how that worked? Is there a session out there for you?
This session out there for me. Anything that was Parliament Funkadelic back in the 70s.
Oh, those sound wild. Those sessions sound wild, man. And fair play to George, he's still going as well.
Oh man, he's a great dude too, man. I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times. I think the first time I met him, it was at this awards thing in New York in the 90s. He had 1990, and he was like, now mind you, I'm idolizing this guy. First time I meet him, he's like, yeah, man, you know what? You're silly. I was like, oh my god, he called me silly. Oh, Jesus. The guy was the silliest guy ever called me, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my god, I could just die right now. I was real happy. It was a good feeling. I was like, yo, man, he recognized my swag.
That's crazy. That's wicked. I mean, that just nicely leads me on to my next question, which was like, there's certain things you must have done in your career that have kind of been a highlight. One of the things was like you getting 5 mics with De La. I'm just wondering what it must feel like to have a 5 mic album under your belt, and obviously Grammys. But also, do you have any career highlights where you look back and think, God damn, I can't believe I did that?
You know what I think of, and it's not me not being appreciative, because I went far beyond that I've ever thought in my life, career wise. Like I've never sat down. It's like I'm gonna have 8x10 glossy and become a star. I've never, ever. So where I'm at right now, even talking to you is a blessing. It's like I've never ever thought I would get this far. But all that is to say this is I don't think I've done my best work. So I look back and I'm like, all those accolades, sound cool. But it's like I'm better than that. I could do better than that. So I've maybe that kind of keeps my ego in check, where I don't go out and like, hey, look at me, let's guess what I've done. And a lot of people don't know half the things I've done because I'm just like, it's cool.
But that's again just to hear someone like yourself who to me has like nailed almost every aspect of it. You still want to go out and make things, and better is ahead.
Oh, there's this, which way I know. I mean, because when I did things, art is art, and you feel it at the time. Well, true art, and it's off your emotions, what's going on at the time, what's inspiring you. It's all encompassing. I listen to stuff. I'm like, yeah, did I put maximum effort into that? Nah.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, this happens. Man. Happens with everyone for every work they do, because eventually it turns into work, right? Like you've got to pay the bills. It must feel an odd thing because it's such a creative, artistic endeavor that you're kind of putting your soul into. but also you need to pay that utility bill. And yeah, I find that kind of fascinating talking to people like yourself and Primo and everyone else who've come on, and it being like, wow, like you guys, the love, it burns the fire in me, man. When I listen to you, I'm like, wow, like the fact you talk about Earl like that is like, yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing to hear someone with such deep roots in the game to still be like that. If we talk about your bucket list then and stuff you want to do musically or even generally, are there things that you think you still want to do? Things you've got on that list you want to check off?
I wish Prince Among Thieves became a movie. Like I pushed it with everybody. At one point it was getting low traction when it first came out, but it would really be nice if I could find someone to budget that out, and I could clean up the screenplay and that to me would be nice. And I've been wanting to do a one-man play, just get up on stage like John Leguizamo and just,
Wow.
I think that would be really cool to do.
Oh man, yes, that's amazing. Yeah, definitely. I'd love to see that, mate. Look, De La Soul did it with the last album, right? Crowdsource people. There's ways around this shit nowadays. It's kind of nice to see, but also we talked to Open Mike Eagle on the pod, and he was like,
yeah, Mike, I know him. We just worked together on a podcast actually. So that's funny.
Sweet, nice. Yeah. Was it for his podcast? Do you know?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to that because his pod's wicked. The questions he asks, really, he's just a really interesting person. But like he was saying to us is how like independent artists right now have it so hard because back in the day you would at least get money for selling, but you don't even get money for selling. Touring is like the lifeblood, and yeah, when I talk to you there, and it's like wow, like the energy still to do stuff like that, man.
Oh yeah, I mean it's knowing that, like I said, I haven't done my best. But this is where the dilemma comes in. It's father time too. Like I'm in my 50s, so though in my mind to me is a lot slicker. And as I got older, and I was like, oh, I can do it. It's the wanting to do it in the energy. Like what I'm saying? Like I had kids, I got this and that. I'm at the point where, man, that hammock looks really good right now. You know what I'm saying? And that's calling me too, because I've worked my whole entire life dealing with rappers and people. You know what I'm saying? So I just break. So it's conflicting with a little bit of both.
Yeah, man. I feel you on all of it, man.
Yo, what's going on? This is Doc Brown. You're listening to the Crate 808 podcast. Enjoy this week's episode by all means. Just remember to subscribe and rate and review. Peace.
Just before we do wrap up then, man, I had to ask you, because you've made children's records. We talked about you thinking about this being a children's film for the Prince Among Thieves as well, but like you actually have made children's records.
Yeah, I did the Dino 5. Yup.
Yeah.
That's a cool record.
That process, man, that process, what made you want to do that?
Well, I got approached with it about doing the kids record, and it came out a weird time because as that record came about and as I recorded, my mom was dying and she passed away. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air in the sense of it had to put me in a different headspace. Had to put me in, hey, some kids. I wasn't feeling nowhere like that. So it was therapeutic in that sense. So that kind of made me like want to be, I guess, in that headspace to do a children's record. But like I said, then being approached with it, and I'm like, yeah, I could do it. A lot of projects that I do, that I get approached with, even the comedy records, it's like I've never done these things. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of learning as I'm going along, but I tell everybody I could do anything. It's like, can you fly this plane? Yeah, I can do it. I'm thinking like, oh God, man, it's so large. There's I'm looking at buttons like Bugs Bunny. So I think my brain could get me out of almost anything. So, but I like the challenge, and that's why my music has always been so diverse, because getting in one's comfort zone is cool, but man, life is about living it and it's about exploring. And so if I fail, man, I fail, but the risk to reward factor is great. So all my records are always on the edge. I never made anything safe. And like you said, like paying the bills, like I never really thought. I was like, man, look, I could lose with this. I could lose everything with this project. It's like rolling dice. I'm putting all my chips in the middle. All right, let's go for it. It was my career and my life. Yeah, and then
damn, yeah.
It's exciting for me. I mean, I'm smart enough to kind of save money and so I can live and stuff. But career wise and reputation stuff, I put that on the line all the time. It's life, right? You can't sit there and be scared. Like, They're gonna judge me.
Yeah, fear, man. That's true. There's an element of, well, there's an element of ego, but there's an element of brave, just like being like to do something like that. I know it took a lot for us to get this podcast, and we were like, do I really want to present this, or do I want to produce it and get someone else to present it? But then just go in, man. Just go in. You got to do it. So
yeah, you got to do it, right? You don't know until you know.
Exactly. So just touching on the kids' music aspect of it, my little lad running around 2 years old, loving the vibes in the house at the moment, as I said. But if you were to recommend my boy one Prince Paul, either song or record, and it wasn't the kids one, which one and why?
I would have to say 3 Feet High and Rising, because the texture of the album is bright and it's fun. I mean, it has like Ghetto Thing is kind of a little darker, but it's the rhymes are rhythmic, the textures of the record are bright. And it kind of brings colors in your head. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's that's how I look at see music. Like, a lot of people like listen to rhymes. I go for emotions and how it moves me. So you can listen to a rapper who rhymes in French or Japanese or whatever. I mean, if the rhythms are right and the beats right, it's dope to me.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I absolutely understand that point of view where you go from an emotive way of looking at things. If I'm looking at like latest trends in music, then your music's so intriguing to me on so many different levels because of not just the samples, but the way you chop it up, the messaging, the way you flip things. Is there something in like a new music trend or a more modern music trend that intrigues you?
Oh man, all these people, all the producers and stuff in Chicago, to me are so, not all of them, but oh man, like that girl No Name, that record Telephone, like production on that to me, it's like I wish I could do that. For years I could listen to stuff and go, they did that, they did this, I would do that, and I could like. When some people talk and you could just figure out the next word and just repeat it with them. I was doing that with music. I was like, But when I get to something, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know where this is going. Like, what is that? How did they make that? That's how I feel about those Chicago producers. I'm like, yo, it's real musical. It's kind of churchy, but it's still kind of electro, up to date, and they're using all the filters and crap in it in the computers. And I'm like, yo, that to me is dope.
That's wicked, man. Yeah, I need to check some more of that out because I don't know, No Name's been around for a while. To be fair, Chicago generally has got quite a few good artists at the moment coming out of there. So if we're going on to one other thing then, man, before you leave us, we have our playlist, which is like our favourite hidden Wu-Tang bangers. So like, Wu have had so much music, solo and as a group. There's just an enormous amount. Needless to say, there's some tracks that just nobody talks about them enough and they're kind of slept on. Do you have any where you think, you know what, that track deserves a bit more love?
Oh man, I like that record Starter. You know that?
Which one's that one?
Wu-Tang record. Oh man, I think that's really dope.
Wu-Tang Starter. Right, I need to check this one out. Dude, I'm like, what?
Hey, you told me to go there with it.
You did, but this is what we need. 2007, I just looked it up. Okay, I'm putting that on the list straight away.
One that Ghostface has called G Dini.
Yes, G Dini is a banger. Good shout.
I like Domestic Violence by RZA. I think that's cool.
Oh yeah.
Not one for the little kid to hear.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that RZA track. Was that with a Bobby Digital track, right?
Yeah.
I remember this. Okay, see, you just listed off 3 right now, and I can make a podcast about those 3. Like, let's do it, man. I'm here for this. The slept on Wu-Tang bangers. Any more for any more?
Let me see. What is it? Hip Hop Drunkies. I think nobody ever really plays that.
Hip Hop Drunkies. Paul, come on, man.
Yeah, that's ODB.
Oh right, ODB. Okay, again, listing these up. These are the best Wu-Tang answers we've had, by the way. So, okay, you really thought about these?
Actually, I had them written down, but I can't find it. Wu 2002. So now I'm just going off the top of the head. I always thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Oh, I could keep going. Cutting Heads from Old Dirty, which is really rough and kind of.
Yes. That was off the Brooklyn Zoo, right? That's the Brooklyn Zoo album, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. Semi-Automatic is dope. Yeah, I like that. I like Whatever Happened. That's the one with AZ rhyming on it.
AZ and Wu.
Yeah, that's what RZA and AZ. That to me is dope. Nobody ever plays that.
The knowledge here is absolute. We've been put to shame, some of us on the podcast here.
Hey, you said the ones that aren't popular, that's so dope, like.
But that's what we need. That's what we need. Okay, before you kill us anymore, then let's let's put a nail in it, man. Thank you, Paul, for taking the time out to do that, man. But thank you for jumping on generally, man. We appreciate all the time. Is there anything you got to plug? Is there anything coming up from you?
Well, it's funny we're talking about Wu-Tang. I've been working with RZA recently. I'm trying to work on some material, not necessarily his, but some stuff with him.
Whoa. Okay.
So it has to get sorted out. So it's not quite happening yet. So we'll just say it's been a thought.
Yes.
And that's kind of been a working process. But good news is. I've been talking to Dan the Automator, and we're in the process of working on a new Handsome Boy record, which I kind of put off for a while, and I kind of admit it was somewhat my fault because we talked about the last few years. But me and him sat down, and we got something in place, and we're getting the music together, and we're gonna put the mustaches on. And
bro, mate, this is
Yes. I'm excited about that.
We all are. That's going to be amazing. And man, if you ever want to come down, break that album down, both of you come on here, man. I would love to hear the inside track on this new, whatever it is, even if it's just one track, because I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I like to look for the people who shaped my childhood just to see what they're doing now. We had Muggs on.
Oh, Muggs is great. I love him.
Yeah. And it's just fascinating to hear, like, you guys, you have similar tracks in the fact that you're very creative, and the way he was talking with the fire in his belly about the newest shit he's doing, it reminds me of what you're saying. You still to make your best stuff.
Oh, without a doubt.
I'm here to check for it, man, all the time. So if you ever want to come back on, mate, just holler at us.
I'm gonna keep that in mind.
Yeah, man, definitely. But before we leave you to get on with your self-isolation, what's the last great music you heard? It could be old, could be new, just the last great piece of music where you're like, wow, yeah.
Great music. Whoa. You talking about like the last thing that's been played?
Yeah, just something you played or you heard when you were out or whatever, where you think that was great.
Ooh, great is great.
Exactly, man. This ain't messing about. It's like,
yeah, it's not good. It's like, what's good? I'll tell you that Jay Electronica record is good. What I'm saying? But I haven't listened enough to say what's great. What woke me up this morning is Distant Lover by Marvin Gaye.
Oh.
That's great to me. That whole album is great. Let's get it on. It's probably like my next to Parliament Funkadelic, maybe my favorite record like of all time.
God damn. Now you have to drop me some of those, though. Now you're going to have to drop me some of your favourite records. You can't just leave me like that. Like, I can't end this podcast. Prince Paul almost told you his favourite records and you just left it. Like, come on, man. You got to tell me a few.
Oh, man, there's so many. Like, I could go down all the Parliament Funkadelics. But, like, hey, I said Motor Booty Affair. I almost flunked out of 6th grade because of that record. That would have to be definitely be up there. Yeah, there's so many.
Just give me one more. All I need is one more that you would always treasure.
Okay, let me see. Marvin Gaye, let's get it on. Another one would be, I'm trying to think of something that would be in my iPod that I would listen to.
I love the fact you're still rocking an iPod.
Oh, what? I take it to the gym with me, man. All the kids are looking at me like, this gold, man. Hey, it works. You know what's good that I've been listening to? But I've always been into It Takes a Nation of Millions. I always thought that was the blueprint for everything. That's inspired me for 3 Feet High and Rise and a bunch of other stuff, right? Along as Beastie Boys. But you know what I've listened to a lot, especially when I'm on the plane, is Yo Bum Rush the Show. I don't know why. I just, that album is just relaxing to me. So.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. It's quirky, but I like Yo Bum Rush the Show. I could go through like just bunches of just awkward, like Chubb Rock's first album.
Great use of Chubb Rock on Principal Thieves as well, right? Mate, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate all you're doing. Can't wait for the new music. And yeah, man, just stay safe out there in these chaotic times.
Yeah, you too. And I appreciate the the talk and being on the podcast. And yeah, if the Handsome Boy, I'll talk to Dan and whenever we get it done, I'll give you a buzz.
Man, Prince Paul, thank you. You've delivered above and beyond the Call of Duty, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks again. Be safe out there.
You too, man. Peace.
All right, take care. Peace.
Well. There you go. Prince Paul, absolute legend. What a lovely guy. Great person to interview. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Yes, people, we're going to bring up some more interviews, debates, reviews, all that good stuff. Some more DITC episodes as well. And yeah, man, go out there, check crate808.com. On there, you can check all our old episodes. We're thinking of starting a newsletter as well, so you can sign up there if you want to. And of course, we have the Crate 808 Bangers playlist up on the front page as well. Go check it out. We are always updating that with what we're feeling at the moment. So yes, people, thank you for listening. I hope all of you guys out there are staying safe. I hope the isolation walls aren't kind of closing in too much at the moment. We're out here just to hopefully provide a bit of distraction. Check us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Grindhouse Music, big up yourself, bro, for doing all the music on this podcast. And yeah, until the next time, man, we will catch you soon. Go out there, be lovely to each other, don't stockpile, and do you know what? Positive energy, man. Positive energy. Let's go. Peace.